Hello and welcome to our second live lesson video.
In this lesson, we're going to be covering doubles defense with one of our young students, Andrew Harrison. So just to give you a little bit of background information, we've been coaching Andrew for 10 years now, but recently moved on to Nottingham University with some fantastic coaches, Martin Lewis and Chris Adcock. How are you finding the training?
Yeah, it's been good so far. We can train up to 4 hours a day and then, yeah, just really enjoying it. It's
great
fun.
And I think today's session, we're going to have a look at your defense, as you found at a recent tournament, something that you still struggle with in the way of predominantly getting tight and tense in defense.
I just need to relax. Like, I know I get really tense when pressure adds,
So even though Andrew's ranked as top 10 players in England in his age group, the areas we're going to focus on today are applicable for all levels. So we're going to split this session into 3 phases. The first phase is going to be looking at Andrew's defensive technique. The second phase is going to look at how Andrew's defense technique holds up under pressure. And the third phase is looking at how Andrew can apply this technique into tactical situations. So our first phase, defensive technique. Andrew, what are we finding when you're playing matches? What's happening with the technique currently?
I find that I get very tense, and then especially when pressure adds, I stick to one side rather than trying to cover both. Yeah, and then I struggle coming on the inside hip.
And when you say you get stuck on one side, so predominantly you feel that you're kind of a little bit backhand dominant in this position.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that we see quite a lot of, because we're kind of looking obviously to defend on our bevel grip, that some players then lead with the racket on this direction as well. And what that does is it almost makes our stronger side stronger, and the inside hip, which can be a very difficult area to defend from, a little bit weaker, because we're having to add a lot of lateral movement to get behind the shuttle. Is this what you're finding?
Yeah, I find that I kind of then have to drag across rather than just being able to play it out in front.
Exactly. So if you take your setup for me, Andrew. So what we're looking for is, obviously, as Andrew's already talked about, is this is the bad technique sometimes we get into and get a little bit tense, this all locks up. So it's just trying to feel like the elbow still sits away from the body, but this racket's in a little bit more of a neutral position. Now what Andrew can work on then is, as the shuttle's coming in, whichever way the shuttle is coming, it's much easier for him to then pull behind the shuttle to be able to hit much better shots.
Yeah. So
this first routine is a multi-feed routine with David replicating the smash. Andrew's then going to be working on his drives or blocks using the technique that we've just discussed. Okay, stop there, David. So much better with the racket, but what we're seeing a lot of now is as the shuttle's coming towards you, that your instant movement is this body weight coming backwards.
Yeah.
Now you've got to remember that you're hitting some good shots here with the drive and the block. Where are you going to want your body weight to go after these shots?
Forward.
Exactly, so that's where we're trying to feel like we're turning the defense into attack. If we've got this body weight coming backwards, again, we're having to shift our body weight before we can start to come in. So much better with the racket, but now I want to try and feel like the weight is more towards the toes and our body weight feels like it's coming forwards as we're making contact.
Okay.
Better. Okay, start there for me, Dave. And just one more thing, I think you're getting used to this setup here, which is great, but sometimes you still can't help the fact, just before David hits, wanting to still come this way, even though you don't know which direction the shuttle's coming. So really trust yourself to stay here for as long as you can, and as the shuttle's on its way, that's when you start to pull back.
Change. Okay.
Okay, so Andrew, for this last set, what I'll do is just place my racket just behind your back, just to feel like you can't come this way, just to really overemphasize this kind of body weight coming forward. Okay, same setup. That's it. Let's get everything forward. Better. Good. So we're going to move on to phase 2 now, which is testing this technique out under pressure. So Andrew, we talked about 2 changes to make there in that last routine. One was the body weight feeling like it's a little bit more forward, which will help you counter-attack once you hit the good shot. And the second was just that racket position. And even when you have a good racket position at the start, making sure, not making sure you're going too early onto the stronger side, make sure you're moving. How did you find it when you made those changes?
I found that quality was better. And then, before when I was leaning back, shots were popping up as well. So then it's just in a game, they'll just be able to kill it off.
Exactly. And it's really important now that we move on to this next phase, because technique is great to practice in isolation, but it still needs to hold up under pressure in a much more match play situation. So for this next routine, myself and Dave are going to be acting as net players around 2 foot behind the service line. Andrew's objective in defence is to keep moving the shuttle using his drives across the court. At any point, Andrew can play a block. If it's a good block, he's going to look to come into the net. But if the block's too high and me and Dave are in a positive position, he'll still hold his position in defence. Nice. Just make sure on these drives that we're not letting this racket come too far through, okay? Particularly now it's obviously a single shuttle and the shuttle's going to be coming back quickly. Yeah. Well, I feel like we're hitting that drive and the racket is back ready in position, which makes it much easier for you to keep moving the shuttle around. Good. Okay. Good rally, great rally. And just one more tactical area for you to consider, and it's more to do with where your racket sits based on the shot that you play. So sometimes you're hitting some really good drives and the shot's coming at us nice and flat, which means it's very difficult for us to now hit steep, but your racket is still sitting low. As soon as you see you get that good drive level with the tape, you can start to bring this up a little bit more, which is much more relevant for the shots that we can play back.
Okay.
Tough and lucky.
So then obviously phase 2, we're looking at Andrew under pressure a bit more on this technique, and one of the points you sort of made there was his swing following through a bit too much. Can you just expand a bit on that?
I think sometimes we naturally feel more under pressure on defence versus when we're attacking. And sometimes people then try to generate too much power from the wrong areas. So sometimes what happens there, as we talked about with Andrew, is that his arms kind of being used too much. Now what that does is the racket then comes too far away from where it needs to be for the next shot, particularly if we're playing a drive, because that shot's going to come back at us quick. So it's really making sure that we're using this wrist and getting this whip effect, so that racket then feels like it's ready again for the next shot coming back.
Very much similar to like whipping a towel almost. You've got to have that follow through, but then it almost retreats back same position, and you almost end up back in that same position we were talking about earlier.
Exactly that.
So the second thing you also spoke about was kind of Andrew's racket carriage position after maybe a good shot. And I know obviously when we're set in defence, it's slightly lower, but does that change depending on what we've hit?
It's very much dependent on where your opponent is making contact with the shuttle in relation to the tape. So the reason we would be defending low down is because we're defending, say, a smash, or the shuttle is high up in the air, which allows our opponent to hit steep. But as soon as we hit a good drive or a good block, and that shuttle is now being hit level with the tape, this angle can no longer come in, otherwise the shot's going to go in the net. So it's important that we adjust our position where this racket then might sit a little bit flatter, so we can then deflect the shuttle that's coming up at this type of height. What we see a lot of, David, sometimes is that people will still stay here, the flat shot comes in, and then we get this high pulling of the racket and end up hitting really short, high lifts because we don't really have any other choice.
So just backing up the good quality shot you've done and really making use of that. And that's what comes to the whole idea of this video, is that purposeful defense and making more purpose of the high quality shots you're playing. So phase 3, we're going to start adding in a bit more of a tactical element to this routine. I'm going to start at the back and I'm going to hit a block in for Andrew to lift. I'll then smash, then Andrew can drive or block, but it's going to be dependent on where Dean's standing, and he's going to change his position. Why, Dean, is this so important, and why are we adding this in now?
Well, we've obviously focused predominantly on the technical aspects so far, but we often find still in match play that defence can become a case of just get the shuttle back, and we don't think clearly about the spaces that are on offer. So my role as a net player here is I'm going to take lots of different positions, and Andrew's role is to have kind of a vision of me in his peripheral vision to see what I'm looking to cover. So for example, if I'm standing very close to the tee, Andrew may favour a drive because the chances of me being able to react to that shot become very slim. I also look to come across on the channel attack, which may promote a little bit more room on the cross for Andrew to block and follow. So it's just making sure that all the technical aspects we've worked on so far can then be applied to tactical situations that you can take into match play situations. Good. Give yourself some margin there though, because you've seen me cover the straight. Yeah. So the gap over here is very, very big. That doesn't need to feel like that's just about crossing the net into this space. You use the gap that you've created. Good. So there, Andrew, again, that's a really good point. So because you felt more under pressure, because I intercepted the first one, this racket got closer and closer to you, and you just about managed to flap it away in the last one. So we still need to make sure that that short shot and the cross needs to feel like it's much more in front of you and controlled, rather than too close to your body. Okay. Keep that margin, loads of space. Good, good choice, good choice. So Andrew, good example again on that last rally. Is you're aware that your straight block kind of popped up a little bit, and did you feel where your body weight and movement went? No. So you kind of ran backwards. Okay, and again what's happened is now I can hit a lot steeper, and you just can't reach after it. So even though sometimes your quality of shot may be a little bit high and it's not great, still trying to feel like you hold your ground, concentrate your technique, and it's much easier to deflect from here, even though it's quicker, than you trying to retreat too far. Okay. Good, good, good choice. That's up. Good.
Sorry. So, I really love that exercise. It's such a great exercise for tactical awareness and actually just not being a reactive defender. One thing we noticed with Andrew, quite a few errors on the cross block, which I know you spoke about a bit on margins. Can you just expand a bit on that?
I think we still have to appreciate in defence, we're not necessarily trying to hit winners. You know, we're still maybe a little bit under pressure. It's more about how we can turn defence into attack. So Andrew's shot choice was generally good on the cross block. It's just that he's trying to play it too tight. Now again, there's just no need to make an error in that situation, because if that is a good margin shot, he gets what he wants to achieve in that defence, and that's to get the attack back.
Perfect. Okay, and actually, interestingly, when Andrew was maybe not playing as high a quality shot as he would have liked, he was backing off to give himself more time, but actually you wanted him to hold his ground. Well, why is this?
Generally because the shuttle where I was making contact at the net was still above tape, so what that gives me is the chance to still hit an angle and hit steep. So the more Andrew was running off, actually he generally just couldn't reach the shot that I was playing in front. It could be maybe if I was a little bit flatter, then it could have been a little better because the shot was going to come in a little bit higher, but it just didn't really suit the situation where I was making contact with the shuttle.
Awesome.
So Andrew, great session, well done. How did you find the defence throughout the session?
Yeah, it was good. Lots of things to think about, especially for me. I think I tend to go backwards, like you said, so it's just thinking about getting that body weight forward, and then that helps me come forward as a net man as well. It's helpful for me.
And I think we sometimes have to flip this mentality of defence doesn't have to be an area where we feel like we're in trouble. And again, that's very common with people running back because they feel like they're under pressure and they're in trouble. Whereas actually, if we still hold our ground and look, did it help having the visual of the net player at the end so you feel like you had a bit more tactical reason behind the shots?
I think so, yeah, because otherwise I just feel like I'm just hitting shots for the sake of hitting the shuttle.
Exactly. Now, once we've built up this good technical base in defence, it's really important that we practice situations that will come up in a match to make sure we're choosing the right shot to hit rather than just hitting any shot that we like.
So another lesson done, and I think it's worth looking at the similarity in both sessions sort of ended with a tactical element. Why is that so important, Dean?
Because we have to make sure that we have clear tactical decisions when we're playing in match play situations, because the technical stuff is very, very important. We need good technique, but it has to be transferable to when we're playing match play situations. So we can start to choose the right shot, particularly in defence, because we consider defence a harder area because we feel under pressure. Whereas actually, if we feel like we use the pace of the attack and still have this idea of where the gaps are, we can suddenly become a lot more confident, which I think is what defence is all about. If we're confident in defence, we can feel like we defend a lot better.
So thanks for watching this live lesson. I hope you found it really useful. If you want to see more great content like this, please hit the subscribe button and head over to our Instagram and give us a follow.